Hi guys, it's Deborah from North of Somewhere Nomad, and today in this video I'm going to talk about why I've been living in my vehicle for the past 90 days. So there's gazillions of reasons why people choose to live in their vehicle, but in this video I'm going to talk about my why, so let's go. Okay, so why? I'm just going to talk about that concept for a second, because I believe that getting to the bottom of your why is what lays the foundation for anything that you're doing. And that when things get rocky or, you're faced with unforeseen challenges, you can fall back on that reason why, and it just makes the whole experience that much more viable. So I just wanted to put that out there because I put a lot of thought and energy into understanding my why, so that when I moved forward with this really epic adventure of living in my vehicle, knowing full well, having that insight to know that things were going to get tough. So here's why I established my why. 2020 just knocked me off my feet, and I just kind of get pummeled around. I felt like I was in a snow globe. So my life took, a couple dramatic turns. Anyways, getting back to it. So in January of 2024, I knew that with the economy the way it was, and we were in a housing crisis here in British Columbia, and my income had been significantly decreased because I went on a disability pension. So with all those factors, the economy, the housing, very limited income, I knew I was facing a situation that I was, it was uncharted territory. Like, I had never considered not living in a home, but I knew what I was facing. So what I did was I just laid all my options on the table, put down what do I do have and what do I do want, right? And why do I want those things? So that's the process I did for establishing why I was going to do this. But first I had to look at my options, because at that point, around January, February, my landlord had let me know that she was going to Airbnb the cabin I was living in, because she was going to get 4 times the amount of money. And I got that because she is a single woman, and just trying to make, everybody's just trying to make it work. So I accepted that, and I knew the deadline was July 1st. So I just was in a bit of a shock at first, because I honestly didn't know what I was doing. So first considered the reality of my situation. Here's what I have. So I had a small little chunk of money from savings. I had my vehicle, and I have like amazing credit, and I wasn't burdened with owning a home or lots of possessions and things like that. So my first consideration was that I would just take my savings and find another apartment to live in, where I was living out in the the north part of the island. Rents were not that outrageous, compared to the major cities. So that was one of my thoughts, that I would just take this savings, sell some things that I felt like I didn't need, and then go rent somewhere. But when I did the math, that would only have carried me like, not even 6 months. And then what was I going to do? So I scrapped that idea, because I knew with the resources I had, this little chunk of money, I had to make something work for the long term. So that's when my juices started flowing. So I thought, the only way I could do this would be to live in a van. I was stuck on that. What was tripping me up was that I had this vehicle, and I was still making car payments on my little Ford Fiesta. So there was just too much of this was blocked, that was blocked. So I did, try to get some financing for buying a van. And that was tricky, because the interest rates would have been through the roof, and they were like, moving forward, my income had been significantly decreased. You know, I was on a limited income, and so that was not going well in my favor. And anyways, once I thought about, you know, what if I got this financing for a van, then I also had to do the build out, make sure it was, you know, winterized, and just the money, you know, the dollar signs were tick, 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 tick. So that was also when I thought, okay, what I do have is I've got my Ford Fiesta. And because it's a hatchback, you know, it's pretty spacious. So I started looking, you know, taking measurements, da-da-da. And then when I thought, okay, you know, I can do this, I have the funds that I need to kind of build out my car and get some things that I felt I needed at the time. I ended up buying way too much, but at that time I thought these were essential things. So that's when it happened. I made the decision in, I think, April or May. Yeah, April for sure. So that's when I just put it on the table and decided I was going full force into this decision. I was so scared, but I was also confident in myself. I knew I had the grit and the determination and the resilience to do this. I knew that there were, you know, things were going to get hard. And then I just started studying other car lifers who were sharing their story on YouTube. And so essentially my why came down to circumstances and an actual desire to live in a vehicle, like a nomad, a true nomad. I've always been a nomad. I've moved a lot. So this to me was the epitome of embracing who I was and what I wanted, and just kind of follow my north node, you know, my North Star. And that felt to me so exhilarating. Read a lot of information about, you know, just hit the path that you want to go on and just do it full force, right? So that's what that was my why. Circumstances were pushing me towards what I really wanted. I knew I wasn't going to have the van, at least at this stage. I believe I'm going to have my van one day, but I had to work with what I had, and so that's what I did. So I'm going to share some of the things, like the step-by-step stuff that I did and bought and kind of put in place for this journey that I was going on. I felt that success to me is when preparation meets opportunity, then or success or luck or whatever you want to call it. So that's what I was sitting on. So here are some of the things that I just out the gate. You know, at the moment that I made the decision, my car was definitely not in the state it was. It was like the factory stuff. So I had, you know, basically it was like a fishbowl. The windows were clear. So I had a lot of work to do, and I made a list of what I thought were the most important things, and what the main theme around my decision to do the things that I did was comfort. So when I had that, knowing that part of my why was I had to be comfortable, I had to be warm, and yeah, that was just the basics. So here's a list of the very first things I did and basically why I did them. I knew I needed to camperize my car, do a car camper conversion, right? So the first thing I did was I gutted the inside of the car, took out the seat, the front passenger seat and both back seats. And then from there, what I knew I had to do was build my platform. And that took a lot of work to research, and you know, my car is like different shapes. It's not a square box. So that was my first project. But also around that time, I was assessing, I had at that time a lot of stuff. I still kind of do, but I knew that there was no way, like I was living in a 500 square foot cabin, and then I was going into, I don't know, 20, 30 square feet. So I knew there was no way I could fit what I needed in the vehicle. And there was just some things I just felt like I couldn't get rid of. So long story short, I ended up getting a storage locker room. And so right away I got everything. As I was building the platform, I started putting everything into storage, because I felt like at least then I could, you know, work with what I have in the car and the storage, and it didn't have to happen by the July 1st. So So that's what I did. Got my storage unit, got everything in there. Yeah, so at that point I had the storage, I had my platform. So the next thing I did, which everybody that I was, following on YouTube who were converting their car into a camper, was to get tinted windows. So that's what my next step was. And I basically, in the back two passenger sides and my hatch window, I got 5% limo tint. And the two front side doors, windows, I got, I think it was 35%. So basically the back is blacked out. And I felt really good. I thought I can do this with these heavily tinted windows. But then what I did was, once the platform was built and and the windows were tinted, I did a couple of, like, just one night here, 2 nights here, just to, suss out the whole situation. And when I was out there doing these little, experimental weekend trips, I didn't feel comfortable with the fact that my windshield is not tinted, and the front two side windows, while they're tinted, anybody could just see in, especially at night when I had lights on and stuff like that. So I was like, oh no. So then I realized, okay, I need window covers. And I tried to do the DIY, and lots of people had done it very successfand it was just an extremely frustrating process for me, especially because my windows, are not square like in a van, and they're extremely odd shaped. Like my front passenger window is like, So I gave up on that project and I made the decision to buy window covers, and I went with WeatherTech. So, those initial foundational things, I thought I'm going with quality over anything else, because this was a long-term plan for me. So the initial investments I were making were a little pricey, but I had this little chunk of savings, so I kind of priced things out before I did it. Anyways, so I got the window covers. The next thing I did was, once everything was in storage and I got down to the basics, or what I thought were the basics at that time, which I've just gotten rid of so much, but at that time I had too much. So I ended up buying a rooftop cargo box, and that freed me up. I forget how much room that is, but it's basically a lot of room in that cargo box, surprisingly. And also at that time I decided the only thing I was going to do was, car camping campgrounds, because it just seemed so like over the top for me that I felt like camping in campgrounds was the thing I needed to do. So I got my windows tinted, built my platform, got a storage unit, got my rooftop cargo box, and then my main focus was sleep. So I ended up getting a really good mattress, trimmed it down. I've got lots of videos about my car tour and other things where I talk about the inside of my vehicle. So another thing that I knew I had when I put down all the resources that were available to me, because I'm on a disability in this province in British Columbia, if you are on a disability, you get an exemption through BC Parks to park at any campground in British Columbia, and you don't pay. Well, you're exempted from the payment. So that's why I decided for sure that's what I was going to do, camping campgrounds, because there's, I don't know, hundreds of campgrounds in British Columbia. And I also wanted to stay on the island because this is a geography I know. And also, like, South Island is one of the warmest places you can live in Canada. So I wasn't really thinking about the winter coming forth at that point, but I decided that I was going to primarily stay on Vancouver Island. So I researched all the campgrounds and plus I knew where things were, and my base was in Courtenay. Once I had the foundation of the things I wanted and needed, I started adding more things so that I could live comfortably in my vehicle, and that included my power bank, and I've talked a lot about my power in other videos, so if you're interested, check those out. Especially my top 5 essential things needed to live in your car. I share a lot of that in there. I also then bought an SUV tent so that It extended the amount of space I have. I knew I could sleep really comfortably in my car, and I could do basics. I could get dressed, and you know, basically that was about it. I could cook at the front where I have a little kitchen, but I decided that having an SUV tent was, you know, a bonus because I could do more in here. It was like my little living room. So I got the SUV tent. I got a really good sleeping bag that goes to -10, but it's even like, it's long, it's wider than a normal sleeping bag, and just, you know, I did lots of research. So I got a good sleeping bag. And then I got 2 cooking appliances because at that time I was working with my Jackery 500. So my Jackery 500 was 500 watts. So anything I was going to use with my Jackery had to be 500 watts and under. And it's not that easy to find those kinds of appliances. So coffee is my life. So I bought my kettle from Amazon, and that pulls 300 watts. And then I was looking at all these little appliances to cook, like the Dash appliances, and I looked on Amazon. There's like frying pans and pots and stuff like that that were electric. But after watching lots of videos, again, I decided to go with my little rice cooker, which was like 20 bucks. It pulls around 300 watts, and the Jackery, so the Jackery could handle those 2 things. And the Jackery came with solar panels, but anyway, I'm not going to go into my whole saga about power because I've talked about it before. So anyways, that's what I got. And then I also bought my 12 volt, 20 quart fridge. I thought maybe I could do the whole cooler and ice thing, but after I did a couple of these weekend experimental experiences, I decided I needed to have my basics. Like really in my fridge, I buy pre-cooked meat and milk and eggs and yogurt, and I just couldn't fathom like not living without those things. I didn't want to live off processed foods like Mr. Noodles and canned tuna. So so that's what I did. I made that another investment in my fridge, and I'm so glad I did that because it has made my life easier, and it's cheaper than eating out, and it's healthier than eating processed food. So that was that. Thing that I was considering was water, you know. So I at first bought those little water jugs that you get at Walmart and stuff, and that was too frustrating because you have to cook, and I don't know, it didn't work for me. So I got a 3-gallon jug, and my water faucet, which I bought from Amazon. So it's electric and it's USB rechargeable. And that solved my problem with water. I love my water jug and my faucet. And then I built out my car around my sleeping area. So it would have been nice to get a custom build, and I considered that. But I really didn't know at that point how things were going to work in the car, and I didn't want to buy or invest in something that maybe didn't work for me down the road. So I bought some different storage type things and did a Tetris thing in my car, which is basically stores my clothes and all that. So that was a fun thing to do, and so that's another investment I made. Another one that was really important that I haven't really talked about much is I got a BCAA membership. Covers, you know, things like if I broke down on the side of the road, they'd come and tow me to wherever I needed to go. And that I bought the one that will tow you for, I think it's 160 kilometers, because a lot of the places I camp are off the beaten track. So anyways, got that. It also, like, if you get a flat tire, they'll come and fix the tire for you. If you run out of gas, they'll come and fill up your tank. You know, that was a really good investment because even one tow truck, I don't know, it's like 150 bucks. So I thought I will do that. So yeah, so those are the things I put in place. And as I was doing each one, I was feeling more and more confident. Like, you know, and when I was living in the cabin, I'd go out and lie on the bed and be like, oh yeah, I could do this, because it was a real transition for me. It took a little bit longer. You know, I think about some people, about why they have to live in the car, and it's, you know, it's an instant thing. It's out of necessity for their safety, or, you know, those reasons. So I felt grateful that I had this little opportunity of time to make this really work for me. Right, so now I'm at 90 days in, and I love living in my car. I really do. I like the fact that it's, you know, low maintenance and I can pretty much go anywhere. It's super stealthy. And I have actually experimented with all three types of car camping. So I've stealth camped, you know, in a parking lot where you're not supposed to park. I did that twice, won't be doing that again. I've stealth camped in areas like designated areas, like rest stops and things like that. And I liked that to a point because I felt light and I could basically go anywhere I wanted. And then I've done my complete car camping at campgrounds with amenities and things like that. So obviously my preference is camping at campgrounds, but it means I have a lot of extra stuff. So I have to pre-plan where I'm going to go, and you know, there's a lot of work involved in that. But I found that over the past 90 days, car camping at a campground is my ideal situation. But knowing that I can do the other two has really been amazing for me, because I had to really push myself to do that stealth camping. It was completely out of my comfort zone, and I can't really do it like efficiently. How some people just, they're in their car sleeping at night and then they just pop in the driver's seat and off they go. You know, it's just not in the realm of possibility for me, nor do I want to do it. So I have lots of other options. So I'm going to continue to car camp in campgrounds as much as I can. Right, so after 90 days, where am I going? So I've decided I'm going into, we're in the fall, I'm going into the winter. I'm going to car camp through the winter. And these 90 days have really given me the courage and the determination, and you know, I'm confident that I can do it. The winters aren't really that bad here on Vancouver Island, so that's where I'm going. I really feel like I'm just going to continue doing this until such a time I get a van, because I also did spend a week living in a home. I was visiting my son, and they have a big home, and I thought, oh, this will kind of be a test if I want to go back to my live in a house or an apartment or something. And I could not wait to get back on the road. The only thing that will change me from living in my car will be getting into a van. And the reason why I want to get a van is basically more space. I don't want one of these massive vans. So I'm looking at my options around there. I don't know when that will be, but for the time being, moving into at least the next 90 days or even 6 months, I will be in my car. Yeah, guys, so that's why I've been living in my car for the past 90 days. And I think it's completely viable. If I can do this, I think, you know, not everybody wants to or can do it, but it's totally doable if that's on your radar. So yeah, I'm going to close this video now, guys. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in following me along on my journey further as we go into the winter, then hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care.